want you to look at the people sitting on either side of you. One of the three of you will develop some sort of chronic disease problem. Chronic pain, high blood pressure, depression, amongst others. I know. As a society, we have come to accept this. We have come to believe that this is our natural lot in life, the result of our humanity and of our aging. But really, is it? Do we have to be doomed to bad luck, to suffer from illness or disease? If you or one of your family members are suffering, you may feel powerless, unsupported, and even hopeless. It can be a very lonely and scary place. If this happens to us, we go looking for help. We may have long wait lists for appointments, do trials of medications, maybe even surgery and therapy. But often, we end up exactly where we started, sick, in pain, and depleted. What we discover is that cure that we're looking for cannot be found in the pill bottle. So what do we do? Is there hope? I believe there is. But I believe the place for finding that hope may not be where we are looking. As a practicing physician, I am deeply passionate about this topic. I would go from examining room to examining room, working with patients like this every day. I would go in armed with evidence-based knowledge on pharmaceutical treatment for patients to help them as much as I could. But time and time again, I would feel powerless in effecting true change in the suffering of my patients' lives. The cost for this problem is not just our healthcare costs, but it's the cost for the suffering of this patient's lives. It's the cost of their mood, their relationships, their finances. All of these factors eventually build and affect society as a whole. Not too long ago, I was one of those patients. My body was riddled in chronic pain, my mind was cluttered in confusion and sadness, and my immune system was crashing. My road to recovery was not the conventional one, and one that took me outside of the medical model, and that was the most astonishing thing for me. I discovered what teachers have spoken about for decades, but few of us pay attention to. Scientists call it stress. At the time, I would never have said I was stressed out. What I have learned to understand is that what they're speaking of is not just the stress we might feel when we're busy chasing our kids or sharing a great idea in front of a more amazing audience, but also something that impacts our nervous system on a daily basis, but few of us are aware of. The American Medical Association says that at least 85 to 90% of our visits to our family doctors are for a reason directly related to stress. So what is this thing called stress, and what is it doing to our bodies? Stress is anything that puts our body into a place of fight or flight or out of its natural element of ease. At the time that I was sick, I had no idea that the emotions I felt every day, like frustration or overwhelmment, could affect my body, but they do. As adults, we have no idea of the impact of our emotions on our body. All we know is we wake up one day feeling sick, exhausted, and depleted. The emotions that we are feeling are affecting us much more than we realize. For many, myself included, we are raised ignoring our emotions. My own upbringing was to do first and feel later. This is incredibly common. We are raised to be doers and thinkers, not feelers and beers. I remember being really in my head and thinking a lot. I was an overweight teen and discovered exercise in my early 20s, and I became obsessed with my body. Every time I would pass by a mirror, I would look at the profile and go, "You can stack that stomach in more, make it shrink." And before I knew it, I was calorie restricting, over-exercising, and literally spiraling into anorexia. I used to think, I'll be liked more. People will think I have it all figured out if I'm just skinny. The more I obsessed with my body, the busier my mind got. I want to get everything right. The body obsession spilled into my whole life, and I want to get everything perfect. My mind never shut off, and the busier it got, the more tired I got. I hit the ripe old age of 28, and I had achieved all of my childhood dreams. I'd become a family doctor, I'd made the move out west, and I'd gotten married to the then man of my dreams. I should have it all, right? Yeah, I know. He's not so much. Anyways. I should have it all, right? Because, this is what I lived for. I should find a place of bliss. That's what I was taught. Instead of finding bliss, I fell apart. My body literally hit its exhaustion point. The fatigue intensified, my mood plummeted, the pain became crippling, and my immune system crashed. On a daily basis, I was requiring antibiotics, painkillers, and antihistamines just to make it through the day. This loop that I was in was more than tiring, and out of desperation, I decided to try something different. It took a lot for me to think that something might be wrong here. Somewhere in me, I thought maybe there's a connection between how busy my mind is and what's happening to my body. In all of my years in medicine, I had not studied this once, but it was a gut feeling, if you will. And one day, much to my own surprise, I ended up at a yoga class and began yoga and meditation. On a conscious level, I didn't really know why I was going back. I would feel temporarily better, a little less in my head, and somewhat energized. Over time, I started to realize my thoughts are in overdrive, but I recognized I had a choice about it. I would ask myself to feel a little bit more and think a little bit less. I asked myself to feel my way through my day rather than plan every moment of my day. It was gradual, but over time, I was moving from my mind and thinking area to my heart and feeling area. As I was doing this, my body started to unravel from its illnesses, and I was excited. So I returned to my science to understand what had happened, how I had gotten sick, and more importantly, how the heck had I gotten better? What I discovered is that these beautiful bodies of ours, they're sensitive to those emotions that we feel. The anger, the guilt, the frustration, the resentment, the sadness. These bodies interpret that emotion as fear. And when we feel that, our body literally turns on the fight or flight system. So this is what's happening in the fight or flight system. That's pretty, isn't it? We have these things back here called adrenal glands. These adrenal glands sit right above our kidneys. They secrete the majority of our stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Adrenaline, you may also know, is called epinephrine. Adrenaline goes to many body organs, but most notably the heart, causing an increase in heart rate and increase in blood pressure. Cortisol also cascades to many body systems. We're only going to talk about 5 of them, but there are many more. The first place we see cortisol going is into the heart. What it does there, it causes a dysfunction to the cells lining the blood vessels of the heart. This damage then leads to plaque buildup, which leads to clogged arteries. The other place we see cortisol affecting is our digestive tract. Our ability to move food through it actually slows down, making us feel bloated and gaseous. Over a period of time, the gut's ability to deal with the normal acid secretion decreases, causing us to feel heartburn and peptic ulcer disease symptoms. The appetite, we can all relate to this. We've come home from school or a day at work, we've had dinner, and then an hour later we're eating ice cream and potato chips. Cortisol causes us to crave carbohydrates to replace our energy stores. That just causes us to gain weight. Then there's the good old immune system. Cortisol cascade goes right there, making us more prone to infections. And then the muscles. The muscles tighten, making us more prone to chronic pain. This fight or flight system has been spoken about by researchers, scientists, clinicians forever. As physicians, we see this every day in our examining room. Despite the science, we are conditioned to rely solely on medications for treatment. In North America, we spend $400 billion on prescription medications. The top prescribers, I just described them, the top on the list: high blood pressure medications, stomach medications, painkillers, and antibiotics, just to name a few. Now, these medications are phenomenal because they will help us with our symptoms, but they do nothing to address the root cause. The cure for that root cause is not in that pill bottle. The cure for the root cause is only inside of ourselves, inside of our minds and our emotions. That's where it lies. So if the cure is not in the pill bottle, I thought to myself, there must be a better way. After I got better, I went off to learn how to help people mentally and emotionally. Then many years ago, I started to teach this to my own patients alongside of my family practice. I would teach them about stress, I would teach them about their emotions, and I would teach them how to deal with tensions differently and how to repattern their emotions. Ultimately, I was curious to see if this would make a difference in their disease state, their health outcome, their quality of life. I was shocked at what I discovered. With just a little bit of mental and emotional coaching, this stuff actually works. Every day, I see clients come in with chronic pain, and it shifts. High blood pressure, depression, anxiety, even infertility, endometriosis, gut issues, food allergies, and the list goes on and on and on. It is so possible for all of us, and the thing is, it's not hard. It just takes a desire to be open to new ways of healing. So y'all are probably wondering, great, Dr. Divi, how do I start? How do I not be the 1 in 3 here? The place to begin is with ourselves, our minds, our emotions, and our belief systems. So we have about 900 people in the room today. Each of us will live life in a very distinct, unique, and individual way. If we were all exposed to the exact same external event, we would have 900 different actions and behaviors in response to that event. Why do you think that is? Our actions and behaviors are a direct response to our values and our belief systems. The thing about our belief systems is they are taught to us passively by our parents, our teachers, our school system, our media, and so on. And if we look at our belief systems more, they actually originate from thoughts that have been thought over and over and over again. And these thoughts originate from single thoughts. Now, the thoughts that we think, the actions we take, the beliefs we have, all of these prongs create an emotion. And if the emotion doesn't feel good, then we trigger the cortisol cascade. So you're probably wondering, how do I break this cycle? The place to begin is to first identify the emotion that you're feeling, and then to identify the thought that creates the emotion. Now, you might find this funny, but sometimes we may not know how we feel. I know I didn't. I actually didn't have a clue. When we're so busy doing, it can be actually a little challenging in those moments to know exactly how we're feeling. Once we identify the emotion, then we want to identify the thought that creates the emotion. This can be a little bit tricky too, because for some of us, we feel like a slave to our thoughts. It feels like our thoughts think us. As our consciousness and awareness increases, we actually start to realize that we are the thinkers of the thoughts. We start to recognize our emotions. We start to slow down the thoughts. And here's the thing. If we recognize that we think the thoughts, the clincher, then we can change the thought. Because a thought is flexible and malleable, it's not stagnant and fixed. So how it works is once you discover the emotion that you're feeling and the thought that creates the emotion that doesn't feel good, then you just want to find a new thought that feels just a little bit better than that old thought. Just a little bit better. Then hold that new thought purely. Just hold that new thought purely just for a little while. I always tell my clients 3 or 4 deep belly breaths. Then after you find that new thought just feels a wee bit better than your last thought, then before you know it, you're going to find other thoughts will come in. Then over a period of time, you'll actually find new clusters of thoughts. And then over time, you'll actually have new actions and behaviors. Then over time, you'll actually create a better feeling belief system. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a better feeling emotion. That's how we change the cortisol cascade. In my own case, when I was desperately searching for a solution for my own illnesses, the emotion I felt most often was fear and anger. It took me a while, and I had to dig deep to figure out what the thoughts were. But the thoughts and beliefs I had were, I am not good enough, I am not worthy. I used to believe that my worth was completely dependent on my external achievements. When I actually realized I had these thoughts, I thought, there must be a better way to think. I had no idea that there was a connection between my thoughts and my illnesses. All I knew is I wanted a relief from these thoughts. So as the old thoughts started to quiet, I started to introduce new thoughts. It was impossible for me to go from the thought of, I am not good enough to I am good enough. I just didn't believe it. It was too big of a gap. So I just went up one thought at a time. I went from, I am not good enough to, who the heck says I'm not good enough to? Maybe I'm good enough? With each step, I would wait a few days, a few weeks until it landed, and then I would move to the next one. Then I went to, maybe she's good enough. Maybe he's good enough. Maybe they're good enough. Maybe I'm the only one who gets to decide I'm good enough. Then finally I settled at, I decide I'm good enough. By doing that sequentially, I was eventually able to create a new belief system. My new belief system is, I am worthy. I'm not worthy because of what I do, but I am worthy because of who I choose to be. I choose to be kindness. I choose to see the grace in others. I choose to feel love and appreciation. My worth is internal. The new emotion I feel more often is peace and ease. I am happy to stand in front of you and tell you, yes, my body and mind are healthy and well. Now those old thoughts, they still creep in, and I just gently bring in the new ones, and then they leave. There are so many people we all know in our communities that are suffering despite maximum therapeutic intervention. As clinicians, we are equally puzzled as to how to help them further. What I now see is that there is hope. We do not have to feel powerless and victimed in these bodies of ours. Hippocrates, who is thought to be the father of medicine, has been quoted as saying, "It's natural forces within us that are the true healers of disease." What I have discovered is no, the cure is not in the pill bottle. The cure is not in that blood test. Taking that pill can buy us some time, alleviate the symptoms, and bridge us while we do the true healing work. The true healing work lies in the mind and in our emotions. Healing is not a mysterious black box. As we recognize the thought behind the emotion, then we realize we have a choice within that thought. Exercising that choice is the most important part. It is time. It is about time for us to move our emotions from disempowerment to empowerment. It is our time. The freedom that our bodies are aching for is actually the freedom that our minds are crying for. Thank you.